If you are a B2B service-based business owner and you are looking to gain more clients, create more impact and more revenue in your business, tune in to Amplify Your Marketing Message with Campbell Rapin. Every week, we're going to take you through how to build an audience of buyers, mastering your marketing message, and making offers that convert consistently. We'll see you all on the inside. For many business owners, there's a lot of mixed emotions and convoluted thinking when it comes to the question of too niche or too not niche. Or perhaps you're thinking too niche or too not niche. Well, I'm going to come and share my perspective on the importance of getting clear on who you serve when it comes to finding your next buyer predictably. Because truthfully, I think you're asking the wrong question if it comes down to finding more buyers. Many people will argue that in order to be found, you have to declare a market segment, which is for what we mean here in this podcast episode is your niche or your niche. So if I asked you, you might say my market segment is chiropractors, offices who have 3 or more practitioners, who run this amount of client revenue, and who serve this geographic area. And that all sounds really good because it's clear. But my question to you is, knowing that, does it help you find your next buyer? Well, perhaps it helps you when you are prospecting, but does it help the buyer find you? Maybe that is not so clear. In all my observations of working with businesses, everything from freelancers and solopreneurs to some of the biggest companies on the planet, your buyer is often not who you think it is. And that's where niching becomes problematic in the traditional sense of viewing it as a market segment. And truthfully, most of my clients, when they come to me, don't nail this market segment out of the gate. This process of finding who is your next buyer is more iterative than it is read to be in a marketing textbook. And that is probably why you find so much confusion about, do I niche? Do I not niche? What's the benefit? Does it help? At the end of the day, you're left confused. And at the end of the day, you're left struggling still with the bigger question. Where the hell is my next client coming from? So I want to peel back the experience my clients get when they are working with us in either the one-to-one business scale accelerator or through our client group program, which is called Ignite Your Client Growth. And it takes 6 months to work through building a really solid business plan that you implement to find clients predictably. I don't think that looking at things through a vertical lens is particularly helpful. I want my clients to think not about the attributes of their next buyer, which can misrepresent the reality of who will be your next buyer, and instead do this. I want you to think about your client as on a continuum of a journey. I want you to think about the fact that they are in motion and they are, as we know, we covered here before, having 3 key markers. They are problem aware, they're actively seeking a solution, and they are committed to doing some changed inputs in order to receive better results than their current situation has them experiencing it. So if we think about that for a second, what is important to note is that knowing that they are in a specific geography, in a specific industry, is not enough to help you find your next buyer. That's why it doesn't work particularly effectively. Instead, I tell my clients, think about your next buyer as being on a continuum of life decisions, problems, opportunities, and solutions. You as the business owner if you want to find more clients, need to stop thinking about niching and start thinking about the targeted intersection of a decision-making moment. What is happening in their lives that requires them to change lanes, to change behaviors, to confront the ugly truth that I'm not where I want to be, I'm not getting the results I want to be, and there's a gap between desire and truth. Because it is recognizing that decision-making moment that is going to be the catalyst for you finding more clients predictably, frequently, and if you do it right, profitably. That is far more effective than niching. Because truthfully, if I, as the business owner, can recognize that decision-making moment, I can move intentionally towards it and I can intercept it and redirect that moment into my business plan, my marketing engine, and my process for taking somebody who's curious to paid client. So what is the line in the sand that your next client is facing? Can you spot it? Can you describe it? Can you empathize with it? And do you see it clearly? This, my friends, is far more effective than anything else I know. And so I want you to start to shift your perspective around not the question, should I niche or not niche, but what's the decision-making moment my next buyer is facing? Because a buyer is a decision maker. The attributes are just window dressing. You need to recognize what's the line in the sand that they are drawing for the first 10th, 100th, or maybe millionth time. Because it is through the decision that you have opportunity to create client growth. And so when I'm coaching clients to get out of the traditional BS story of to niche or to not niche, and say, I don't care what niche you're in. I don't care when you come to me as a potential buyer for my services, whether you have a business that is in the world of chiropractics, in the world of financial services, in the world of rare books and manuscripts, or anything else under the sun. It doesn't pertain to whether I can help you or not. It's just the window dressing. What matters to me and what would make the decision a firm yes or no, which is our goal, comes down to whether I know what you are looking for when you are facing a decision. And it is understanding what decision is happening, what you desire, what it looks like, what the gap is that I can tap into. And so when I tell clients, I want you to see a continuum. I want you to choose the intersection point. I want you to know this really important part of this. That intersection point is not the same intersection point that happens when somebody has already decided, i.e. your current client or your past client, because they've already made the decision and they're in a different time and space than the person who is contemplating a decision. That person contemplating a decision is earlier. What we need to do to support that decision differs. The speed at which we engage differs. The amount of details we provide differs. And so that is one of the reasons why most people really struggle to find clients. They're so focused on who they do serve and who they have served, but they're not thinking about who they're next going to be serving and what is happening in their time continuum. And therefore, unfortunately, you walk right by them. That's a mistake you have to correct. It's the mistakes that we take clients through so that our clients don't miss this gap. But when you're contemplating a decision-making moment, this is iterative. Most of my clients do not get this the first time because it is about theory and real life. And usually there's a gap. And so I tell clients there's 5 things we need to do to land on our decision-making moment. And once we land on it and the clarity grows, You can add gasoline, you can speed up the engine, you can add capacity, and you can really accelerate the growth of your business and your bottom line. But you have to have proof of concept. You have to know the moment, intersect the moment, and do so predictably. So here's the 5 steps we take our clients through. The first thing you have to do is experiment. That means talking to real people. There's no point building an entire product or service around somebody that is not a decision maker and is not in this world of grand theory. So we experiment. We talk to people. We find out where they're at. We want to decide if we want to meet them in that moment or somewhere earlier or somewhere later and everything in between. So get into conversation and ask yourself, is this who I truly want to serve? Do I have the patience, tenacity, understanding, and compassion to serve them well? And you know that by step number 2, which is tracking movement. Everything we do is about movement and momentum. The holy grail of consistent clients comes down to predictably curating movement. So I want to track wins. If I engage, do they have the behavior I desire? If I connect, does it land? If I experiment, what are the good, the bad, and the ugly around it? And I need to keep fine-tuning, which is why it's like an onion and why we often don't hit this out of the park the first time around. The third thing we want to do, if we want to be successful, we want to take a fast track to business growth, is we need to look for markets that are already winning. It is so much easier to play in a landscape of buyers that are already buying than for you to create a market. Demand and supply is simple economics. If there is demand for a service, you have better chance walking into it, getting clear on that decision-making moment and showing up to be able to supply a result and guide your next client to success. So I want you to track the market. I want you to observe where money is moving hands. And I want you to decide in that moment, is that where you personally want to play? Because somebody really wants to play there. And if it's not you, you're building somebody else's dream. Your business should feel like oxygen. And so you have to choose to experiment, to track wins, and to say, yeah, that's my jam. I want to be in exactly that moment. Not because I can, because we're taking basic capabilities as a given, but because I choose to. Because choice is the ultimate motivator, whether you are in a winning season or a struggle season, and both are on the horizon. The fourth thing that we do and we tell our clients to do is to test topics. Just because somebody is in a want phase doesn't mean that you are the right must hire. You might have a plethora of skills, a plethora of ideas, and a plethora of strategies in your toolkit. You get to test the topics that land. You get to listen to the internal tuning fork and say, am I showing up in a way that feels like oxygen? And discard those that don't feel like the spark that lives eternal. The fifth thing that you need to do is fine-tune. Fine-tune your language, fine-tune your approach, fine-tune your offer, fine-tune the invitation. Because here's the truth. You are looking for a needle in a haystack. You're looking for the buyer of today. And the buyer of today is a small group. Statistically, across all sectors and around the world, the number is around 3%. That means 97% of the people you encounter are not ready yet, are not motivated to make a decision, are not interested in making a decision, are not capable of making a decision. So you want to build this like a muscle. It's not about niching or not niching. It's about recognizing the decision-making moment that your client of tomorrow is making, and you intentionally choose to say, I'm going to intersect them at this moment in time And here's the foreshadow. Once you do that, your business will accelerate. But here's the challenge. When you accelerate your business, that means more clients, more revenue, and more momentum in your business, you start to disconnect from where the original decision is made. You move upstream. And when you move upstream, you're thinking, why is what used to work no longer working? Well, it's no longer working because you're focusing on attributes and not the decision-making moment. And my friends, that happens to us all. And it takes important discipline to go back to the foundations and say, what's really happening? What's really going on? What do they really desire? What can I bring to the table? What would spark their imagination? And keep asking what. If you want to find more clients, niching is a who question. You're asking the wrong question. You need to get clear first on what is going on. Because truly, what is the impetus to movement? It is the spark, the genesis, the original heartbeat. And if you can't connect to that, it doesn't matter who they are. Because they're not defined by the who, they're defined by their desires of what, the inner heartbeat. And so if you want to see more clients, growth in your business, here's the couple things I want to review. It isn't a question of niching or niching. That's important from marketing strategy. Yes, it has absolutely its time and place. But if your goal is clients, deciding that somebody is a vertical specific place isn't always the best focused action you can take. Instead, I'm going to invite you into what my clients experience. A whole shift of thinking, not around niching, but around decision-making moments. What's the intersection that you want to play at? What's the place you want to put up a signpost? What is going on? And how are you uniquely positioned to direct traffic? Recognizing that not all traffic will follow your pointed direction. That's okay. You're looking for your buyer, not any buyer. Doesn't that sound attractive? Your buyer, not any buyer? And if you really want to accelerate between a someday buyer and a today buyer, you've got to get crystal clear how you move them from curious to paid client. You got to be sure you're the must hire. You got to know that and be confident and lead it. My friends, business is elegantly simple. If you want to find your next buyer, it's time to reframe how you think about going to market. You need to rethink about your business. And this is such a basic question. Don't go skating right past it, because doing so is your downfall. Shift gears. And if you need help figuring out that intersection, come chat with me. My name is Campbell Rapin. I've helped business owners in every sector, not to find their niche, but to find their next client, and then build a client growth engine to find that client predictably, frequently, repeatedly, and yes, build the business foundations to do it profitably. I'll see you on our next episode. That's a wrap on another amazing episode of Amplify Your Marketing Message with me, your host, Campbell Rapin. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss another great episode. And be sure to visit ChristineCampbellRapin.com/podcast to get a free resource on how to master your marketing message. We'll see you all on our next episode.